thank you so much. That was a beautiful introduction. I don't know that I deserve such a nice introduction, but the best part of the introduction was the little faux pas she made when she said 46-year-old veteran. I'm like, yeah, baby, I'm 46 again. How'd that happen? 46 year, I knew exactly what you meant. I knew exactly what you meant. But it made my day. It made my day. It's an honor and it's a privilege to be asked to present at the Rotary District 6380's conference here. And it's beautiful, beautiful place here in Rochester Hills. I've never been here before. It's absolutely gorgeous. If I had the money, I'd have my grandchildren married here, but I don't know that I can handle that, okay? I'd like to extend a special thank you to Sharna Hatcher, your district governor, for making my participation happen and for being so warm and so welcoming. Thank you so much. Over the last few days, you've had the chance to meet with your fellow Rotarians, share ideas and concepts, hopefully be inspired to take constructive action in some positive way. Inspiration produces action, and action produces more inspiration. Inspiration can come from a song, it can come from somebody's words, but most impactful, most inspirational things come from above and beyond actions of people who are truly heroic. Heroes are persons who are admired or idealized for courage, outstanding achievement, and noble qualities. And heroes can be as infamous as Alexander the Great, as swashbuckling as Superman, or as trailblazing as Rosa Parks. But heroes can be as courageous as your local firefighters, as noble as an environmentalist striving to save our world and our planet, and as humble as a person looking to bring modern sanitation to a part of the world needing what we take for granted. We take it for granted. Heroes come in all shapes and sizes, in notoriety or anonymity, and in all walks of life. And what they all have in common is the same call to action found in your Rotarian motto, service above self. The call to heroism is often unpredicted, unexpected, but the hero's response is what truly can save the day. One of those unexpected calls to action occurred in New York, Washington, D.C., and Pennsylvania on September 11th, 2001. It was a day unlike any other, and none of us will ever forget where we were when we heard the news of the planes crashing into the Twin Towers. Like JFK and Martin Luther King's assassinations, like the Challenger explosion, the news of the attack on our liberty and our way of life immediately consumed our every thought and emotion. Remember the moment? Where were you? I clearly remember where I was. You see, as was mentioned, I was on the 105th floor of 2 World Trade Center, the South Tower, when the events of that day began to unfold. And my ability to be here with you today and relate all of this to you is testimony to the acts of selfless heroism on the part of first responders from the New York Fire Department, the New York Police Department, and the Port Authority of New York and New Jersey. So, you don't know how much that meant to me, just that little bit of applause. Thank you, because these are the people that should always be remembered, and this is what I do this for. So thank you. And let me share my experience with you that day so you can more clearly appreciate the story of these heroes and the lessons learned. Thank you. What would we do without this guy, right? What would we do without this guy? I heard his version of Dancing Queen. I'm just telling you.
Dancing Queen.
Somehow I got a feeling, I may be wrong, but somehow I got a feeling that the Dancing Queen karaoke event was somehow helped by karaoke juice. I'm not sure. Special karaoke juice, right? There you go. Lessons that day. I just retired from the insurance industry after 46 years. It was a wonderful thing, a wonderful industry for me to be in. I appreciated every moment I had of that time. However, when I graduated from Temple University back in 9/11, I had no intention on getting into the insurance industry. My dad was in the industry. His dad was in the industry. I wasn't going to continue this. I went to school for radio and television communications. And it was back in the late 70s when I graduated, okay? And my dream job when I graduated, what I wanted to do with my life, what I was going to be, was a disco DJ. That was going to be my job. I was going to be a disco DJ. But things have a way of changing, right? They happen to always have a way of changing. I met the love of my life during college. I decided that we would become a married couple, or actually she decided that we would become a married couple, have children, so on and so forth. So I needed to be more thoughtful about what I was going to do, and I got into the insurance industry. And as I said, it provided me with a great life and an ability to raise my family in a wonderful way and see many, many parts of the country and of the world. It was great. If you knew anything at all about the insurance industry and the World Trade Centers and their combination, the World Trade Centers were like a mecca for the insurance industry. Virtually every insurance company in the country, maybe in the world, had offices there. So it was not unusual for somebody like myself to be called to a meeting. In August of 2001, Mary Wieman, an extremely powerful woman at the Aon Corporation, a woman who had smashed through the glass ceilings that still exist in some of our businesses today. Mary called me and asked me to attend a meeting at their offices in New York a month later. I didn't want to go to Mary's meeting. I had a chance to go to another type of insurance meeting, the type that involves aluminum and titanium sticks, little heads on the end, little white balls in the grass. I was going to go out there with these guys, okay, and play some golf. It was a boondoggle that I had an opportunity to go to. So I kind of hesitated a little bit when Mary was asking me to this meeting. Mary, I think I have another commitment. I'm not really sure. And Mary proceeded to do to me what every woman in my life has been doing to me since the day I was born. Good old-fashioned Catholic guilt. Sure, Joe, no problem. Nobody from your company is going to be there. It's all right. Even though it's an important meeting, no, you won't be representative, but, hey, that's the way it's going to be. And she paused for a second. Very, good pause. And then she said, hey, do you know the president of your company? I worked for CNA Insurance Company at that time. She said, do you know the president of your company? And I said, well, yeah, Mary, I report to the president of the company. Well, why do you ask? She said, well, I have a meeting with him next week, and I'm going to let him know that you can't come to my meeting. Yeah.
That's cool.
So I know how that works, right? It's like, okay. So she succeeded. I thought to myself, I can do what she wants me to do. I thought of my dad. My dad always had all these famous sayings. One of his famous sayings was, plan your work, work your plan. I thought of that. I thought, oh, yeah, I can do all this. I can go to her meeting. I can go to that golf thing. I just got to work it, plan it, do it, okay? And that's exactly what I did. On the Friday before the Tuesday, I flew back from Chicago, where I lived in the western suburbs of Aurora, Illinois, but worked in Chicago, Illinois at that time. And I flew back from Chicago to Philadelphia on that Friday, visited with my mom and dad in the house that I grew up in as a kid. On Saturday, visited with my sister, something that I still don't do enough of. She'll tell you that every time you see her. On Sunday, I went to the Philadelphia Eagles St. Louis Rams football game. That's what they were then, the St. Louis Rams, okay?
Go Birds.
Yeah, go Birds. I love that. Who's here? I love it, yeah. Yeah, you know what? The Go Birds makes me have to digress. I am and continue to be a season ticket holder for the Philadelphia Eagles football team. I've been a season ticket holder since 1978. I continue to pay for the seats, and my son and my grandson continue to put their asses in the seats. Bank of Dad never closes, okay? So that's the way it works, right? Now, it's great, but it was an interesting day with my son. My son is about the same height as me, maybe even an inch shorter, but he works on the pipelines, the propane and natural gas pipelines at the Valero refinery in southern New Jersey. He leads teams of people out onto these pipelines if there's a breach, a break, a fire, whatever. He likes to talk about mitigating circumstances, okay? Mitigating what's going to happen. So this little guy, in great physical shape, just like me, right? He thinks he's macho. He really does. It makes him feel macho. So it was interesting. We were coming out of the game, and this kid, halfway across the parking lot, gives me this big giant hug out of the clear blue. And he whispers in my ear, "I miss you, Dad." And I push back and I see a little bit of a tear in his eye. I knew he wasn't crying because of the game. The Eagles beat the Rams. Back then, everybody beat the Rams, okay? I guess it was a pretense of what was about to occur. And we just didn't know that. I get in my car, he got in his truck, off we went. I headed to South Jersey to this beautiful resort where we were going to have that golf event on Monday morning. And I got up in the morning, had that golf event. It was a lot of fun. Had a fun lunch with the people that I was golfing with. And on Monday afternoon, I had a real business meeting, a real live, honest-to-God insurance business meeting. And it was great. And then we were going to have that followed by one of the notorious insurance dinners. And I say notorious because anybody that's in the insurance industry knows this to be true. Insurance dinners begin and they never end, okay? They just go on forever, okay? So, I couldn't do that day because I had a plan. I had to be in New York the next day. I had to be at this meeting that I promised to be at. So I told the folks that I was at dinner with, listen, you guys, you can play all night. I'm going to bed. Got to get up early tomorrow morning. Got to be someplace. Got up at 3:30 in the morning, drove back from South Jersey to Philadelphia to the 30th Street train station, Amtrak, and was going to make my way to New York City. If you're from New York City or you visited New York City or know anything about New York City, one of the things you know is that you don't want to drive into New York City. The traffic is just horrendous. So this was my game plan. Go to Philly, take the train, get to New York. Way to go. And I got there at about 5:30 in the morning, bought my round trip ticket. The train dutifully arrived at 6 a.m., got on the train, got in my seat. Well, before I got in my seat, took off my backpack. I don't carry a briefcase, I carry a backpack. Took off my backpack, my suit coat, folded that next to me, pulled out my laptop, sat down in the seat, turned the laptop on, and did what all of us insurance dudes do at 6 a.m. in the morning on the Metroliner train on the way to New York City. I fell asleep. It was 6 a.m. It was early, okay? And off we went. And we made our way to New York City. And we were about 2/3 of the way up to New York City when my cell phone rang. I love doing this presentation for younger people because when I talk about this part and I go, in 2001, they had cell service? Wow. Yeah, it was dumb phones, not smartphones, but yes, indeed, we had cell service, okay? And so I'm on the train. And cell service. You know what was beautiful when we were downstairs listening to the presentations earlier? I don't know if anybody noticed, but if you even tried to get on your cell phone, There was no service down there, okay? Isn't it nice to be broken away every once in a while? Cell service has changed the way, cellular science has changed the way we live our lives. Back in the day when you were going to a meeting like we were going on that day, you had to have a plan, an itinerary, typed on a piece of paper by a typewriter. Ask a kid what a typewriter is, okay? It would show your name, what hotel you were staying at, your room number, where your meetings were going to be, and put the phone number of the hotel on, because God forbid you had to make those phone calls yourself. Long distance phone calls cost a lot of money that day, okay? And just in case, you had your AT&T long distance card so that you didn't get charged for those calls, somebody else did, okay? So you had to have a plan. But with cellular service, that's changed. Wherever you are, that's where you'll be. You can be in a beautiful venue in Rochester Hills, Michigan, in the middle of kind of nowhere. And if somebody needs you, they can get you almost immediately, okay? Text you, call you, tweet you, do whatever, okay, to make sure they can get to you. It wasn't that much different in 2001. Before this trip to New York, I had said to my wife, listen, I'm going back to Philly for the weekend. I'm going to go to the game with Joe on Sunday. I got a meeting in New York on Tuesday morning. I'll be on a plane out of Philly on Tuesday night. See you Tuesday night. Love you. That's basically all I told my wife. Didn't tell her a lot. So you thought I forgot where I was in my story. I'm on the train. I'm asleep. My cell phone rings. We're 2/3 of the way up. Pick up the cell phone. Hello? And it was my wife, and she says, oh, I'm so sorry, I didn't mean to wake you up. I said, no, that's great. The train's about to pull into Newark, and I got to get off. She said, Newark? I thought you said you were going to New York. I said, oh, yeah, I am. But it's a lot easier to get to the World Trade Center where my meeting is if I take the PATH subway train from Newark into New York, because it stops right underneath the World Trade Center. That morning, I told my wife exactly where I was going to be. Made my way into New York City with thousands of other New Jerseyans, got up out of the underground and went to walk into 2 World Trade Center. Beautiful, beautiful building. I'm looking up, I'm admiring the shimmering, it was a beautiful day in New York, and the shimmering sun off the windows as it was rising. It was an incredible sight. When I got into 2 World Trade Center, one of the first things to totally impress me were the security people from the Trade Center. Those folks seemed to know that whoever belonged or didn't belong in that building, simply by looking at your face. No ID cards, no anything else, simply eye-to-eye contact with you. They knew whether you did or you didn't, okay? And I didn't. And this guy, he immediately waves me over. I think the 93 bombing in New York City made that a reality for the security team. So he waves me over, he takes my picture electronically, he transfers that picture onto a little white card. And on that white card was my name, the picture, the company I was visiting, Aon Corporation, the floor that I was going to, 105, how long the card was valid for. It was valid until September 12th, 2001, and a barcode. And the barcode was the most important thing on that card, because that not only contained all that information I just mentioned electronically, that was also the way that you would swipe your way through the electronic turnstiles into the elevator banks in the building. Both buildings were identical, 110 stories high. The 110th floor in the North Tower was the windows to the World Restaurant. Unfortunately, that was open that morning. The 110th and the 107th floors in the South Tower, the building that we were in, they were observation decks, and fortunately it was too early for them to be open at that point in time. The other floors that I did not mention from 106 on up in both buildings, heating, ventilation, air conditioning, elevator equipment, elevator cabling, no human beings. We were swiping through to go up to 105 in the South Tower, the highest occupied level of the building at that time. The elevator banks went up to a sky lobby level, 44 or 78. I was going up to the 105, so I took the bank of elevators that would go on an express basis to the 78th floor sky lobby, and that's exactly what that was, another lobby in the building where you had to switch over and get on another set of elevators that would service everything up to 110. When we got to 105, the elevator doors opened up, and ironically, there was Mary, the woman that had shamed me to be at the meeting that day. And it was kind of an interesting moment because there's Mary, and in one hand, she's got a rag, and the other hand, she's got a spray bottle of Murphy's Oil soap. This was not Susie Homemaker by any stretch of the imagination, but this was how important this meeting was to her. She is just polishing all the furniture in the enclosed conference room that she was about to send us into for this meeting. And she escorted us all over there. As I mentioned, it was an enclosed conference room, okay? 4 walls, no windows, 1 door. 4 walls, 1 window, no door. 50 some odd people being herded into this area for a meeting. The meeting was supposed to commence at 8:30. No insurance meeting has ever started on time, ever. And this was no different that morning. Everybody was standing around drinking their Starbucks and talking about the kids in soccer or lacrosse. There was a big lacrosse thing at the hotel that I was staying at. I couldn't believe it. There was like a jillion kids that were up until like midnight last night. It was so much fun. But I mean, that's what we were talking about. Our lives, our family. Yeah, we were at the same hotel, and it was, anything but insurance. Nobody was talking about insurance. And at 8:46, the lights flickered. That's it. Just this little electronic flicker of the lights. A little power surge. Couldn't see anything. We couldn't hear anything. We didn't feel anything. Just the flicker of lights. Almost immediately, a gentleman by the name of Rick Blood from Aon bounded into the room. He said, "Hey, there's been an explosion in the North Tower. We got to evacuate." 54 intelligent human beings, all in the same room, all at the same time, and we all did the same thing. We looked at Rick, we kind of waved our hands, and we said, "Rick, this is New York. Stuff happens. Let us have our meeting. We'll be fine." And he looked at us. He had a kind of little a forlorn look in his eyes, and he looked back at us. He said, "No, you don't understand. I'm the volunteer fire marshal for 105, 104, 103. I can't leave until these floors are empty. And I got to tell you, I want to leave." I know Rick got everybody out of that room that day because I was the last guy out. And he escorted us all to the nearest fire stairwell on the 105th floor. And that's where he proceeded to tell us that we were now going to walk down 105 flights of steps. Oh yeah, what a bunch of happy campers we were at that moment. And everybody did the same exact thing. This was back in the day when you were the woman or you were the man if you had a holster on your belt that held your cell phone. You were all that, okay? And everybody went to their left or their right hip to pull out their cell phone, flip them up. They were flip phones back then, okay? If you still have a flip phone, shame on you. And something interesting happened on the way to the cell phone. Flip them up, look at the screen, no service. No service. The main cell tower for all of southern Manhattan was on top of the North Tower, the first building to be struck. So cell service was gone, and it prevented us 54 folks from calling somebody to moan and groan about the fact that we couldn't have our meeting. And that's what we were doing. We were all kind of perturbed. We were all kind of annoyed that, oh my God, and now we can't even communicate. And I'm sure you're thinking to yourself, well, didn't you understand what was happening? And that's the point, folks. Each and every one of you who were not there knew much more what was going on outside and inside those buildings than any of us that were there. We had no clue. This was a worldwide televised dramatic event. We were in the middle of it. We had no clue. Not a clue. We proceeded to go down those steps as Rick asked us to do. We got down through that fire stairwell to the 90th floor. The fire stairwell doors on each level of any high-rise building like that, when there is an event, they're usually, if they're open on a magnetic device type that holds them open. And when there's an emergency, the magnets release and they automatically close. Those doors are supposed to remain closed during that emergency. If you've ever been inside a fire stairwell, you know there's a sign on the back of the door to the left or the right of those doors at each level that says, if you're in here, don't leave except at the lobby level. And I know those signs exist because some insurance geek like me is responsible for them. That's life safety, fire safety. We knew that. I certainly understood that. I'm in the fire insurance business. How ironic, right? And I knew that. We got to the 90th floor and the door was propped open out of the fire stairwell onto the 90th floor. And even though I knew better, and even though everybody else was filing out onto the 90th floor, I followed everybody and got out into the 90th floor myself. I didn't know whether I had to get to another fire stairwell, wasn't sure the makeup of the building, but I can tell you that that's where I experienced the worst 30, 40 seconds of my life. To look out those windows to the north tower, to see these gaping black holes through the sides of the building, gray and black billows of smoke pouring out of those holes, flames redder than any red I had ever seen before in my life, licking up the sides of the building and beyond the top level. Seeing furniture, paper, people being pulled out of the building. Unbelievable sight. Gruesome, awesome sight. And if you remember, I mentioned this before, it was a crystal clear September day that day in New York City. And I remember being able to see through that smoke, through that fire, into those huge black holes, and seeing pieces of the fuselage of a large plane lodged inside the other building. And I thought to myself, my God, how did this pilot not see this building? How did he miss? He didn't miss. He didn't miss. And you see all that, the furniture, the paper. I was so afraid, so afraid. My immediate feeling was one that all of us have had in our lives, whether it was today, a decade ago, 25 years ago. And guys, you've had this just as much as any woman here today. That pit of your stomach, I want my mommy feeling. I just wanted to go home. I didn't want to be there. I wanted to go home. And I turned to leave. I don't know, there were people on that floor that seemed to be frozen, whether they were frozen in fear or mesmerized by what they saw, screaming out loud, but almost seemingly incapable of moving. I knew I had to go, and I had to leave. And I turned around to leave, and when I did, I almost knocked over a gentleman that was in the same meeting as me. His name was Lud Picaro from the Zurich Insurance Company. Lud was a huge human being, okay? He was an All-American middle linebacker football player at University of Pittsburgh in his day. So he's a big dude. And I almost knocked him over with my stubby little body because I was in such a hurry. And he put his big hands on my shoulders and he said, "Where are you going, man?" And I said, "I'm getting out of here. I don't know about you, but I'm getting out of here." And he said, "No, that's a good idea, Joe. But before I go, I'm going to go." And he pointed to the nearest men's room. That simple decision on Lud's part, that simple delay in his egress, in his departure, cost him his life that day. That simple decision. I, for my part, said, okay, I'm going. I got to the top of the fire stairwell. They're making an announcement over the PA system. If anybody's done any research or reading, you'll know about this. And I can do it almost verbatim. They made an announcement and they said, we believe the event has been contained to the North Tower. We believe the South Tower should be considered safe. We suggest that if you work in the South Tower, you return to your workstation. If you're a visitor, we suggest that you stay where you are until further notice. If you feel you need to proceed, please proceed with caution. I know, right? But think about this, folks. That was actually a logical thing to do. There's a person, woman or man, in charge of building security. They're down at the base level, the ground level of True World Trade Center. They know that there are as many as 25,000 people in the building at any particular point in time. They know this, okay? And at this point in the event, they've got a cop on one side, they've got a firefighter on the other side, looking back at them saying, you got 25,000 people, it's raining concrete, steel, and bodies outside. Where are you gonna put these people? And I'm sure this person in charge thought to themselves, well, wait a minute. Our elevators were going up and down. Our ventilation system was working. Our electricity was on. Let's hold off. Let's wait and see what's going on before we do anything too dramatic. Logical, made sense. Who would have ever thought that within 18 minutes the same exact thing would happen to our building? For my part, I wasn't going to stand still. I wasn't going to hesitate. I was going to keep on going. And I got there, kept going down once I got into the fire stairwell. And I got down to that 78th floor that I mentioned earlier, the sky lobby level. There you had the opportunity to decide whether you were going to go over to a bank of elevators or continue to stay in the fire stairwell. Mary Weeman, once again, she's out in front of me by almost a half a stairwell. She looks back and she's screaming to me, Joe, 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 I am not walking down 78 flights of steps in these shoes. I'm taking the elevator. She was using a word in there that no Rotarian would ever use, okay? Guaranteed. But this was Mary, strong, powerful, leader. I see Al Kappelman from the Liberty International Insurance Company. This guy was a volunteer. He was a captain of his volunteer fire company out on Long Island, following Mary to the elevator. I see Dave Carlone, Senior Vice President from Factory Mutual Insurance Company, the greatest, the finest commercial fire insurance company in all the world, following Mary to the elevator. Finally, some common sense took over this pea brain of mine, and I thought to myself, building, fire, event, yeah, I know it's not our building, but no elevator. Stay in the stairwell. Arguably the best decision that I've made in what continues to be my life, because I was somewhere between the 74th and the 72nd floor when that second plane plowed through our building. That plane went through our building on an angle between floors 77 and 82. We were just a few short stories below the strike zone. And folks, I have never, ever experienced anything like that and hope to never experience anything like that again. That fire stairwell, that concrete bunker that we were inside of started to shake so violently, back and forth, back and forth, back. It felt like forever. Maybe it was seconds, maybe it was a minute. The concrete spidering out, the handrails breaking away from the walls, the steps undulating like waves in the ocean, and this thing is just going back and forth. We feel this heat ball blowing by us. We smell this jet fuel, and back and forth and back and forth, and it finally settles. And you would think that there would be massive pandemonium. Nothing but a stunned silence. All of us did the same exact thing. Again, we all reached to our holsters or to our pockets to pull out our cell phones to try to communicate. And you know what? It was a blessing that they weren't working at that moment, because truly at that point in time, ignorance was bliss. What we didn't know couldn't hurt us. It made us do the most logical and smartest thing, and that was to concentrate on getting out. And it was one of those moments that you as Rotarians see many times when you're doing one of your projects and you see it, and it's a wonderful thing to see. We don't see it enough, but at that moment, when everything was going downhill, when everything looked like all was lost, when nobody understood what was going on, we saw human nature at its finest. We're a funny breed, human beings, but when things are really tough, it's when we are our best. We love to respond to a need. And that day, there were people coming into that fire stairwell, coming off of crutches, out of a wheelchair, cast on their arms, just freaking out because they don't know what's going on. And people just like you and me, were helping those people physically and emotionally, helping them to get down, helping them to do what needed to be done, calming their fears and telling them, yeah, you can. Yeah, you can. You can get down. You can do this. We will help you. I've never seen such an amazing outpouring of love. That's what this was, this total outpouring of community, of love. You're lucky as Rotarians. You get to see this more often than others. Cherish those moments. And this was one of those moments. And off we went to continue to do what we needed to do to get down. We were down. Everything was pretty copacetic. The fire stairwells were 3-4 people wide. So we were making plenty of room. We were coming out from 105, the highest occupied level. So we were the last. We were some of the last of the people coming down that stairwell. So not a lot of crowds, not a lot of emergency. If there were anything in your way, you just kicked it out of your way. For instance, at one place and one time, I have never seen so many pairs of women's shoes. Now think about it, okay? You're 70, 75 flights above street level and you're in 3 or 4 inch heels. A lot of barefooted women that day, okay? If you needed a new laptop computer, boom. That place was your day, okay? That was where you needed to be. More electronic equipment pitched inside that fire stairwell than an old bankrupt Circuit City store. Let's see who remembers that, okay? And again, egress was fine. We were making our way around. What we didn't need just kicked out of the way. And everybody was going in the same direction until the 35th floor. And that's the chance we had for the first time to encounter the police, the firefighters, and the paramedics from New York City and the Port Authority. Just the looks in their eyes told the story. No words, just the looks in their eyes. They knew. They knew. They knew that they were going up those steps to try to fight a fire that they couldn't beat. They knew that they were going up those steps to try to save lives that they probably could not save. And they knew that they were going into the bowels of hell. And they knew that they were going up and that they were never coming back. They knew. They knew. Could you be that brave? Could you be that strong? Right at that same time, there was a gentleman, young man, who was walking along with us. He was a maintenance guy from the building, no doubt from the uniform that he had on. And he was carrying with him the whole time one of the most annoying inventions God ever allowed us to create. The Nextel phone with the walkie-talkie feature, okay? And this thing had been amazingly quiet the entire trip down the steps. All of a sudden, as we see the cops, the firefighters, the paramedics coming at us, this thing starts to belch, make all kinds of electronic noise. And we hear this voice scream out, "We're on 82, we can't get down, we don't know what we're gonna do." And this kid, he's to my left, stops dead in his tracks, and he turns on the balls of his feet to go back up the steps. And I looked at him and I said, "Where are you gonna go, man? What are you gonna do?" And he looked back at me and he said, "You know what, I'm not sure, but I gotta go save my friend." that nameless maintenance man, that is a true American hero. That man willing to lay down his life for that of a friend. Service above self. Wow. I can only hope that the folks in the building made him get out of there that day before he went all the way back up to try to help his friend. We got down to the ground level of the building. You get out of this fire stairwell, you look to the left or the right or in front of you through these huge arching glass windows in the lobby of the building, and you look out and you see what look like the vestiges of war. Crumbled concrete, twisted steel, red markings or blotches on the ground, and you knew what those red markings or blotches were. They couldn't let us out at the street level. It was unsafe, it was unwise. So they escorted us down into the concourse, the underground level. When we got down there, that was the chance we had for the first time to observe people who were in real need. Missing limbs, gaping wounds, true blood and gut stuff, and that human nature that I talked about that was so powerful. It made you want to reach out and try to help, and you could not in that circumstance. And the reason you could not was because there were so many cops, firefighters, paramedics there to help the people that were in need. So those that needed help were getting all the help that they needed. I've never seen in one place or one time such an outpouring of caring, of concern, of love. It's the second time I've said that today. In a circumstance like this, you see love. And that's what this was that day. And all these people that needed help were getting the help they needed. And those of us that were okay, we're on our own. And the herd mentality takes over. And you hope somebody at the front of your herd knows where they're going, because you're now in this concourse, which is a rat maze of corridors, every fast food restaurant known to mankind, a big giant subway station, all kinds of retail stores, signs that mean absolutely nothing to you if you're not from New York. 1, 2, 3, 4, red, blue, green, yellow, uptown, downtown, Bronx, Manhattan. You have no clue. There was a young man in front of our little herd of people, and he said, we want to get to the northeastern end of this concourse here because it's the furthest away from the two buildings. Boom. My internal GPS said, he's right. I'm following him. And we started to make our way through those rat maze corridors, okay? And we're about to make our final left to the northeastern end of the complex like we were going to do. And there it was, folks. Starbucks. And it's open. And there are people in line. I kid you not, okay? Now, I'm a card-carrying member of the Starbucks Nation, okay? But I don't know where people's brains are in a circumstance like that. It goes to show you that even in a moment of great crisis, not all the minds are where they need to be. I got up to the northeastern end of the complex with the group of folks. The escalator is no longer escalating, so now there's steps up, back, to get to the street level. And as I'm going up, I hear my name, Joe, Joe, Joe. I turn around, and it's David Duffy. David Duffy is a insurance compatriot of mine. He is my treaty reinsurance broker. Smartest human being I know. All right, I see the look. Treaty reinsurance, what the hell does that mean, okay? If you think that the insurance companies that insure your business, your car, your horse, your boat, your farm, if you think that the insurance companies take all that bet, you would be wrong, okay? They lay off some of the exposure that they have to any of those losses in any way through a vehicle called reinsurance, okay? The reinsurance is always put together for an insurance company like the one I work for on a treaty or a contract done by an intermediary or a broker. David is my treaty reinsurance broker. He's my professional bookie. That's what he is, okay? My professional bookie. Smartest guy I know. And he's yelling back to me, and I'm looking back, and I said, David, what are you doing? And I stopped mid-sentence, and I said, yeah, you work here. That's right. And then I looked behind me again, and I said, David, why are you behind me? He said, what do you mean? I said, David, you work on what, 53, 54? He said, yeah, I work on 54. I said, I was on 105. Why are you behind me? You should be long gone. And he looked at me and he goes, well, you don't want to know. And I said, oh, I want to know. And he said, well, actually, he said, I was about halfway down, about 25 flights down. And I realized maybe the office wasn't going to be open tomorrow. I'm not sure what was going on. And I'm in charge of the Yankees tickets for the office, so I went back up to get the Yankees tickets. Smartest human being I know. Went back up 25 flights of steps to get the Yankees. I could have understood if they were Lions tickets. I could have understood that, okay? These were Yankees tickets. But there was a reason for that meeting. Fate was at play. We got to the ground level. They were bobcat bulldozing everything. I mean everything. It was gruesome. Bobcat bulldozing it back away from the building. Every uniform screaming at us, run, 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 don't stop, don't stop. You can't help yourself. You get across the street in front of St. Paul's Chapel. If you don't know about St. Paul's Chapel on 9/11, Google it. Not now, but Google it, okay? It's an incredible story. So we get in front of St. Paul's Chapel. You have your Sodom and Gomorrah moment, for those of you of biblical nature. You turn around and you see these two pillars of unbelievable ticker tape of concrete and bodies and steel. David looked at me and he said, what are you going to do? I said, David, I have no clue. I was supposed to go back on a train to Philly, get in the rental car, drive back to the Philly airport, get in a plane, go back to Chicago. I don't know that that's going to happen. And he looked at me and he said, I think you're right. I don't know what's going to happen either. He said, come with me. He said, you can come to my place. I said, great. That sounds like a plan. Where do you live? He says, Upper West Side, 111th Street. I went, whoa, my God. And he says, it's a long way to go. And he goes, you got a better plan? And I said, no, I don't. I know, you're right. And we proceeded to go together and walk northbound. We were only 8 blocks north, 8 minutes from the South Tower. We came across a commercial laundry. The doors are thrown wide open. WINS, the all-news radio station in New York, blaring out that this was an on-purpose terrorist attack, and our jaws just dropped to the ground. This doesn't happen here, not here. But it was the next couple of sounds that are the sounds that those of us that were there that day remember always. I hear it every day, first in the morning, last at night. The unmistakable sound of the twisting steel and the crumbling concrete of what once was the South Tower, the building that we had been just over 8 minutes prior, coming to the ground. And even more incredibly, even more hauntingly, the sound of tens of thousands of people, all in the streets of New York, all screaming the same blood-curdling scream, all at the same time. We were so fortunate. David had a friend in the Tribeca section of the city where we were. We were able to get into Meredith's apartment. Her husband, Meredith's husband, ironically, stuck in Chicago at this point, and that's where I wanted to be. And he wanted to be back in New York with his wife. So we were all not in the places that we wanted to be. But those of us that were in her apartment that morning did what every one of you were doing. Watched the TV, tried to figure out what was going on, tried to understand, just tried to understand. We're about 5 hours into the event. Cell phones, landlines, none of that communication was working. Everything was shut down, either shut down because of overuse or shut down because of loss of an ability to communicate. And so we're watching and we're waiting, and about 5 hours in, the mayor of New York gets on the TV and he says some words that were incredible. He said, New York, this has been a tough day. We're going to get through this. We are going to survive. We're going to recover. And I know all of you just want to get home. Man, no truer words were ever spoken. And he said it again just to emphasize, I know all of you just want to get home. I believe we've got enough confidence in our security and our uniforms. We're going to reopen the subways. Reopen the subways, my God. Unbelievable. And David, my friend, looks at me and says, come on, we're going. And I said, what do you mean? He said, we're going to the subway. We're going to get up to my place. I said, David, I don't know. We're going to go through Midtown Manhattan, Empire State. We didn't know what the next target was going to be. We were just waiting. And I didn't want to be sitting there. Nope, we're going. And off we went, got to the nearest subway station, tried to get down the steps onto the subway car, onto the subway train. The station was just packed with people. We couldn't even get down the steps initially. And finally, when we got down, we got onto a train. It was an express. We didn't really want an express, but that's what we got. It only went up 2 stops going north. It was going in the right direction. That's all we cared about. But the second stop was 32nd Street, Penn Station, Amtrak. The way I had gotten into New York City that day and the way that I was going to get out. Amtrak was doing an incredible job bringing empty trains in from New Jersey and getting as many people out of New York as they could. David knew this. He knew I wanted to get back at least to Philadelphia. That was a step closer to Chicago. I had a rental car down there. I could control my own destiny. He looked at me, I looked at him, no words were spoken. He knew what I wanted to do. We got off the subway car together into Penn Station. We looked like a couple of tourists, and there's this woman from Amtrak in her finest New York accent. And she looks over at me and she says, where you going, honey? And I said, I'm going to Philadelphia. And she said, great, there's a train down here about to take off. And I reached into my suit coat pocket, I had a round trip ticket. And she said, what, are you kidding me, sweetie? We're not collecting tickets today. She used the word in there too. Things in New York never change, okay? You get down onto that train, you go underneath the Hudson River, you come back up on the Jersey side, you look back at what was once the greatest skyline in the world, now relegated to a gray and black cloud. How sad. How sad. 80 minutes on that train from New York to Philadelphia, people sitting, standing, mashed into the train, and not a word was spoken. There were no words to say. There were no words. When I got to 30th Street Station in Philadelphia, got off there, got into the car, decided I wasn't going to try to drive back to Illinois at that point, but I would stay the night with my mom and dad in the house that I grew up in. And when I got to the house, my mom was waiting for me. I implore all of you, especially you gentlemen, no matter what their state is now, no matter where they are now, always love your mothers. Love your mothers. There's my mom. There's my mom. She comes off the stoop. She gives me this big giant hug, pats my bald head, sobs in my ear, my baby. My baby. Didn't have the heart to remind her that I was the oldest one. But my mother did for me at that moment what she continues to do for me to this day in her 92nd year. She helped me and she loved me. And that's what I needed at that moment, was my mom's love. She helped me into the house. I hit the floor, tried to watch the TV, passed out, I don't know, physical exhaustion, mental fatigue, whatever. About 2 a.m, I feel this kick in my side. I rub my eyes, push my glasses back. I look up. My father's hovering over me. And he says, well, aren't you ever going to go to bed? And I thought, oh, my God, I'm 17 again. But I did what my dad asked me to do. Went upstairs, got a couple hours of sleep, woke up early, got on the cell phone, called the office to let them know that I wasn't going to be in. And it was a good thing that I did that because they thought I was dead. They thought I was dead. And I proceeded to make the 14.5-hour drive from Philadelphia to Aurora, Illinois, where I lived at the time. And I did it in about 12 and a half hours. I probably broke a few laws that day, but I just wanted to get home. And this was before all the national and international plans that we now have. You know, you can call India from here as easy as you can call Rochester Hills from here in today's day and age, because it's all good. Back in that day, you couldn't do that. I didn't care. I wanted to reach out, touch somebody. I called everybody I could. They were calling me. I called my wife when I was about 10, 15 minutes away for about the 50th time, it felt like, right? And I said, hon, I'm almost home, 10, 15 minutes away. And she went, okay. And I said, well, hesitation, something going on. And she said, well, actually, they decided that they would have a mass today at Our Lady. I stopped her mid-sentence and I said, hon, yeah, good idea. Good day to be at church. I'll meet you there. And I pulled down the Eola Road to pull into the parking lot of Our Lady of Mercy Church in Aurora, Illinois. And you would have thought it was Christmas. No room at the inn, okay? Couldn't find a place to park. Finally had to illegally park on the street, strike two. And I don't know whether I was more afraid the day before or the minute I opened up the back doors to that church to look inside. All these hundreds of pairs of eyes staring back at me, knowing where I had been. And I looked over to the right, to the pew where we always sit. We're Roman Catholics, we always sit in the same pew. And there's my wife, a couple of my kids, some of my friends. I wish my wife was here with me today. She would love this place, okay? This would be, just blow her away, okay? And she's prettier than me, and she's smarter than me, and she's nicer than me. And she would talk to every one of you here, but I can guarantee you one thing. She would never be up here doing this. This is not her thing. She's not that kind of demonstrative person. So to see this non-demonstrative person, when I look over to the right and see her jump over the back of the pew, run to the back of that church, give me the greatest hug and a kiss that a man could ever want, I knew at that moment that I was home. I was home. And so this is how that story goes. And there are so many lessons that one can take from that day. So many. But I'd like to mention just a couple that I think we all heard and need to understand. Number one, there are no guarantees. Thousands of people woke up that morning and made the simple decision to go to work. And as a result, they never had the chance to go home, to hug their kids, their spouses, to tell their family how much they love them. Don't take anything for granted, ever. And don't hesitate to tell everybody that you love how much you love them every day, and make sure they tell you that back. Don't take it for granted. Number two lesson, we're not invulnerable. There's no magic wall in the middle of the ocean that prevents those who insist on terrorist acts from committing those acts even on our soil. It's not safe, it's not wise to assume any level of impenetrability. We can't be complacent, but we also must not live in fear. Rather, we need to understand those who want to harm us and our way of life, and we need to pre-act, not react accordingly. And the most important lesson of all, don't sweat the small stuff. So you're going to leave here today at some point in time, and you're going to be 15 minutes to 25 minutes behind your schedule, and there's going to be traffic out on the highway, and you get to the airport if you have to get there, and there's a line, and you get home and your kids' jeans are in the same place that they've been for the last 17 weeks, even though you've told them to please pick them up. Don't sweat the small stuff. These are things we tend to get ourselves bollocksed up about, and yet, at the end of the day, what's most important is your family, your friends, your community, and your faith. they're way much more important than the internet not being on or your kids' jeans. Don't take anything out of proportion, and don't sweat the small stuff. You know, just being here is a blessing, and the ability to make some great decisions on an incredible day allow me to continue to be here, and reminds me daily how the decisions and the bravery and the inspiration of many affected the lives of hundreds of thousands. But you know what? You don't need to be in a flaming high-rise on the 105th floor during a terrorist attack to be that effective, to be that impactful. You can be in a beautiful tent setting, in a beautiful conference area in Rochester Hills, Michigan, on a beautiful sunshiny day. And just by making the right decisions, by listening, by offering, you can have incredible effects on you and the lives and partners of your friends, your peers, and your family. I don't tell this story in order to feel better about what only breaks my heart again and again. I don't do it for fame or notoriety, nor do I do it for monetary gain. I do not accept payment for my presentations. I do this because as a person who's been part of a historic event, I feel it is my obligation, it is my duty to tell the story, to give a voice to the 3,000 people who lost their voices that day so that they once more can be heard, and allow their spirits so senselessly dashed that day to once more rise, reminding them, reminding all of us that while they may have lost their lives, they didn't lose their lives in vain. And while I don't seek payment, I do seek compensation from each and every one of you in one way, and one way only. To always remember to never, ever forget. God bless the Rotary and all its good deeds. God bless the great state of Michigan. And most importantly, God bless America. Thank you, everybody.